Oh, gotcha, gotcha. All right, cool. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it very much. Understood. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Fernandez Gatti. I am a consultant with Optiv's attack and penetration team. I am responsible for executing the full suite of Optiv's attack and penetration options, up to and including physical pen tests, which I spent 39 weeks doing last year. That's 39 weeks on the road. I hit platinum status very quickly, which was fun. I've also taught at Eastern Michigan University in their information assurance program, helping develop their ethical hacking programs and helping develop students' life programs. So I want to bring to you today some information about physical access control systems, namely badges, physical pen tests, and why physical pen test matters. So the core functionality is something we'll discuss. I'll bring you up to speed on what physical access control systems are actually doing, how they work, and the components involved in that. And then we'll go over very high level. I'm not going to tell you the commands to use, but we'll go over high level how cloning cards works, and I'll also include in the slide deck the I-class key. Not the I-class SE, so I'm sorry, that's a typo. The I-class key for the legacy I-class. I'll also talk about some of the techniques I've used to get close enough to people to actually scan their badges to take home or back to the hotel and perform the cloning methodology. Also in this talk, defensive countermeasures and developments I've seen while doing my physical pen test for Optiv, and offensive capabilities and developments that have come out in the recent 6 months. Oh shit.
We have an important announcement. Ebola is still spreading. We're going to put you in quarantine. If you find patient 0, tell them I'll get them with the Febreze. We love you, Alex. Do you need any Febreze?
Oh shit. This is what happens in your core staff at GrrCON. Thank you, everybody. So core functionality of a physical access control system, PACS for short. We have the access control server that maintains your records database of who's assigned what badge and can gain access to what areas. It's a very simplistic database. It's if you gain access to it, it's stupid. The access control point. So that's going to be your doors, your gates, your turnstiles, your elevators, where you scan your badge, and the reader is what's actually performing the scanning of the badge. Badges that are out there right now, we have MyFair, iClass, HID, iClass SE, etc. You'll see them in use all over the place, from the London mass transit system using Oyster cards, they use MyFair by the way, to corporate environments that mostly use HID procs or iClass. Very few companies are putting the money out to use iClass SE. And the door itself, which is actually kind of interesting when you look at it, it has a strike pad. Strike pad tells your access control server whether or not the door is closed. If the door is open and the badge scan has not occurred, an alarm will go off. However, that alarm is typically ignored, unfortunately. The request to exit sensor is also quite interesting. People doing physical pen test. Request to exit sensors don't typically measure motion or anything like that. They're more looking at temperature changes. And when temp change occurs of either positive or negative over what's expected, the door just unlocks. It's also really useful when they put the request to exit sensor right by the door in a small hallway that people walk through all the time, so you can just listen for the click if you're trying to break in. So that being said, this is a diagram of a typical implementation of a door with a badge access control at the back end. So you've got the reader, the button if you have a button, the door with the lock, the communications line, the connection to host server or PC. Usually these badge access control systems are running on Windows Server of some sort. Architecturally speaking, I've noticed that they tend to be isolated pretty heavily. Although in some cases that will become relevant later in the talk, they put them flat on their network, accessible to anybody who can talk on the network, which is great. So actually cloning cards, I've struggled with this in the past. It took weeks of research, sitting down reading, going through forums, and trying to understand the protocols. Part of the thing I noticed is it's almost hostile out there. people in the forums feel that this is their knowledge. They earned it, and they should keep it, and unless you prove yourself, you don't deserve it. So that PDF that's linked up there, that's a good one to go through and read to understand specifically HID I-class, which is, again, it's a legacy protocol, but it's in common use. I see a couple phones out taking pictures. I'll hold for a second. Okay. So these are some of the quotes I've caught on forums. If you can't figure out the key, you don't deserve it. If you're here, you should already know this stuff. And did your mom just buy you a Proxmark for Christmas? Which is definitely reminiscent of the movie Hackers. What, did your mom just buy you a computer for Christmas? That sort of thing. It's disgusting, and it does not apply well to what we're trying to accomplish in the security industry. Even friends of mine who are very good, they're very well known in the security industry. Josh had finding out how to break I-class and posted a public post on Facebook saying, hey, how do I do this? Anybody have any information for me? And the information is still so limited that people were posting commonly available Proxmark like GitHub links, making suggestions like using the Iceman repo for their Proxmark, which the Iceman repo for your Proxmark is the best one out there. However, it does not have any sort of core level functionality for actually doing anything involving I-class. So what do? Someone's already done the work for us. In fact, at GrrCON several years ago, they had a presenter come out and speak about their research working against I-class, dumping the keys off of a reader, and working through the math. And this is what GrrCON put out. So this looks like a key we can use, and it is kind of useful, but when you try and use it directly, what happens is this. So, but you notice there, the 467 DC9, we have 3F90EB. Well, why is that changing? That's part of how I-class works. It's running through it's running through math to figure out if this key is valid. If it's valid, this permutation will authenticate you to the card so you can read it. So if it's failing, that means the key we have was probably already used, and we don't have the master key. So what we do, have to work back through the math and get the unpermutated key. And right there, second line, unpermutated key, excuse me. And that typically is one of the useful ones, as is the shaved key. This being said, however, it is important to note that in using this, you still may not have everything you need, so you're still going to have to go through the technical process. Like I said, I'm not going to walk through how to do I-class breaking per se. What I'm going to go through is just what's going on out there in the world. So this is the key I use when I'm doing any sort of authentication to an I-class card, and people tend to treat this like a sacred cow, and it really isn't. Again, it's just data. Who cares? What we really need to do is work on how we're protecting our environments, what people are doing to get into our environments, and if they can't get the badge, what's the next step? So the next step, you know, if we can't get this, if I can't walk up to somebody and scan their badge and perform a badge cloning attack back in my hotel room using a Proxmark, there are other opportunities. But let's start from here. So what you'll need in order to perform a badge cloning attack is a Proxmark, RDV2, RDV4, or Proxmark Easy. Any of these will work. Correct firmware. You'll need to update it. The key for HDI class, or the client can just give you one of their cards and say, hey, have fun cloning this. Thank you so much for the engagement. We say thank you for the billable hours. So one of the things I've noticed, though, when I'm trying to go ahead and try and capture a badge on site without having a client being very friendly and just giving you their badge, is you have a direct approach. So I play rugby. This is a snapshot of me tackling somebody. And I look at this and I go, oh yeah, that's kind of how I do physicals sometimes. I go straight in for the kill. So in this case, you have to go right up to somebody and say, "Hey, how's it going today? Do you know where the so and so is?" Or and at this point, unfortunately, Proxmarks have a very limited range. So when I say you kind of have to go in for the kill, you have to get really close and up into their space. So it's kind of awkward. But sometimes you can break through and get the touchdown or the try, as we see in rugby. Uh, but really, it comes down to due diligence, and I have luck in quotes because a lot of people will call it pen tester luck. It's not luck. We're doing our jobs correctly. We're trying very hard. We're identifying the assets. We're performing public information profiling on clients when we're going through a physical pen test where we want to make sure that we understand who they are, what their dress code is, what their environment looks like. And one of my favorite aspects is when somebody posts a picture of their badge on Twitter, on social media, on anything like that, and are saying, "Hey, look at me, I got a new job. Look at this badge. Isn't this cool and shiny?" That's great because it allows me to make a fake badge, go forth into their environment or close by, identify myself as an employee, and get close enough to potentially scan their badge. So that goes into getting close to your target, making excuses, trying to get their trust in a short amount of time, basic social engineering. So in the distraction of the target, if you're using just a Proxmark, again, very short range, we're talking centimeters. You have to sometimes kind of, we have a coworker that created a folder, and the folder has the Proxmark in there. And what he did when he was talking to a target, he took his folder in hand and smacked the guy in the chest with his Proxmark. He says, "Hey, where does that go?" Pointing to a doorway. So sometimes minor assaults are acceptable in physical pen test, I guess. So that being said, tap, 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 or smack. There's some defensive countermeasures companies can and should put into place. When I'm doing physical, one of the things I look at is badges. I want to find people sitting at coffee shops or Paneras or wherever with their company badge out. This allows me to take a picture of it, like I said. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. If you have a good badge policy, ordering employees to put badges away when they leave the company premises, that stops me dead in my tracks sometimes. Also sandwiching the badges. So you have the badge in the middle, two pieces of plastic on the outside, so they can flip up to reveal the badge, or in some cases they can even have branding or logos on the outside of that sandwich, which I'll get into in the next slide, and I think is bad. Badge design should be very flat, very basic, and this prevents an attacker from sitting in a coffee shop and understanding that the person they're sitting next to works at their target. So it doesn't matter what color it is. All it matters is that it doesn't have the company logo, it's basic, and it doesn't show who they are really in the organization. So you want a name, an expiration date, and a photo. What I've advised some organizations to do is to take a colored approach and have perhaps red as operational or white as your basic frontline interfacing with customers. Just have a difference between your badges and operational standpoint. For example, a retail location. Let's say AT&T, not a client, not somebody I've done. Full disclosure on that, and being very honest. AT&T badges in the corporate retail store look very different than what an AT&T badge does at a corporate office, and that's an intelligent move on AT&T's part. So, that being said, I've also come across some very interesting countermeasures other companies have been doing. Unfortunately, not this, but they have had anti-tailgating alarms I've identified and facial recognition. And to go into depth on what these two things do, the anti-tailgating alarms I've found. I was following a target into a corporate environment, trying to get in to steal stuff in order to demonstrate effectiveness of the techniques. And so I had one person in front of me, one person behind me. First person scanned their badge. They were using a multi-class reader, so I just had a random badge on me that wasn't programmed for their system. So I scanned my badge, and it beeped. Awesome, right? Third person went ahead and scanned their badge. Unfortunately, though, as we all got into this semi man trap with all three of us in there trying to get past to the next door to go up the stairs, an alarm goes off. And all three of us look around like, what the hell is that? I've never heard this sound before, and I personally never have heard that sound before. It's my first time in the building. So, but they go forth and, all right, whatever, moving on with our day. Scan the badge, let us all into the next phase, and I go up the stairs. However, knowing what I'm doing, I know I've just been caught. I'm busted. So I have to start performing evasive methodology there and just go through and make sure that I'm not physically captured by the security officers of that particular facility. So I'm running around, go up to the second floor, knowing they'd be searching the first floor, go up to the third floor, then go down to the first floor, go back up to the third floor, sit down, and then this tall, bald, angry-looking man finally catches up to me and reaches for my waist, where my badge is, right here. And I mean, I'm like, what the fuck? But yeah, he looks and this isn't one of our badges. Who are you? Come with me. Okay, you caught me. Congratulations. Facial recognition is another technology I've seen used within a defensive countermeasure aspect. People will scan their badges. The cameras are of quality enough these days where they can get an actual profile of the face and compare the face that's on file for them to the face that was just captured when scanning a badge. If the face that scanned the badge does not match what's on profile, what happens is an alarm goes off in the security office. Not an audible alarm, or they could if they wanted, but typically not an audible alarm. And what happens at that point is the security officer is dispatched. Those are the two things that have made my life very hard doing physical pen tests. So if you're an organization that's currently looking to beef up your physical security, look at those two things, anti-tailgating and facial recognition. So as offensive countermeasure or capabilities have increased, though, to counteract these things, there's still some stuff that's kind of left behind in the way that people haven't addressed or haven't considered important enough to address. An old badge access control system is akin to using an unpatched Windows Server 2003 on the internet. Don't do it. If you have old stuff, I get it. You can't afford it or you don't want to put the budget into it. You should probably try and layer that security, though. Tools like the Proxmark Easy has an automatic replay functionality. Press a button, you get it close to the person, it captures the badge, and then you can just press another button and it replays that badge to a reader. These attacks are simplistic. Anybody who can afford a $89 Proxmark Easy can do these attacks against your organization. Therefore, there is a fairly sizable risk on the physical side. And MyFare, which is used in Chicago public transit, used in London for their Oyster cards, used all over the place, it's fairly cheap, has also direct replay attacks. So if you ever want to get a free bus ride, get up close to somebody, use the Proxmark. So I'm going to circle back to core functionality here, which we're about to get a little technical. The physical access control systems and door controllers have indicators on the network. And part of the reason I'm talking about this is we're going to talk about the network attacks against these things. Because physical attacks are one aspect, the network attacks are actually far more deadly to your organization. So when you have somebody that is able to get into your environment by using any of the aforementioned physical attacks, by badge cloning, by social engineering, if they're able to drop a box and get in, they can then start scanning for your door controllers. And that's like 21, 23, 80, and 9999. DNS is also an awesome utility, so if you have like DNS public facing and you can just query it, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Because your door access control systems typically are named like this. So I'm not sure if this is, yeah, this is fine. If you look up there, you're seeing like HSC S1 1 star, P2 Master 197C. These don't look like computer names, and also iStar stands out to anybody doing physical pen tests as a physical access controller system. So this is a really commonly used application to manage badges in the back end. For a user of it, though, there's a web app you can also utilize for troubleshooting, for negotiation, and so this sits on the server, the Windows server. This sits on the controller. So the controller is more the thing the door controller talks to. So door controller, access server. And so anybody can get access to a controller on one of the web interfaces. They can start messing with who has access to what, if they can guess the very easily guessable password. Um, and there are other systems out there like Access Specialties International. Um, but more recently, two people that I worked with in the past, idolize in certain technical aspects, and adore completely on social level, Mike Kelly and Chris Carless, released a tool set called Concierge. It was presented at both HushCon 2017 and ThoughtCon 2018. Neither of those talks were recorded. So the information they provided there were only available to the attendees or friends of theirs who they shared this information with. And what Concierge does is quite amazing. This is just a basic command line output of some of the aspects, some of the things it's doing. It can scan for badge access control systems. It can scan for badge access controllers at the doors, or at the back end for the doors talk to, and badge access readers that the doors talk to, or that doors talk badge, excuse me, that the doors read the badges of. So, and it can exploit them. And the really cool part about exploiting them is you can do whatever in the heck you want to these guys. So let's say you have a badge with the wrong facility code that wants to get in. Well, cool, I just tell the badge controller that this card, regardless of the facility code, has access to this door. And they can just scan their badge and get in. Don't work there, don't have to, I have the badge. So that being said, we've developed an attack scenario which this could be useful. So the concierge attack chains, you gain physical access to the environment. You use social engineering, badge cloning, whatever. You drop a box in their network with remote access capabilities. Use that network point of presence to compromise the PAX system, and then leverage that to gain permanent or persistent physical access controllers. And this, of course, results in office pranks, which is, of course, what we want to do if we get inside your office, right? We just want to leave like nasty ERMs and air horns underneath chairs. Nobody actually wants to harm you. But the realistic development is you end up with a guy in the chair type scenario. Once I've obtained access to your badge access control system or your PAX system, I can sit back in a chair and have another asset of mine go forth into your office and do as I please. Because with concierge exploitation, I can tell a door to remain permanently closed, regardless of who's swiping their badge. I can tell a door to open. I can tell a door to accept a badge. I can also tell a door to delete all badges out of the database. So I can really mess with a company when they're attempting to do incident response. So in the scenario I presented earlier where I tripped an anti-tailgating alarm, if I had somebody working as a guy in the chair performing this for me, they could have just locked the hallway behind me, and I would have never gotten caught. So, until I get the battering ram out. But for those who don't know, that's from Spider-Man. I loved when that movie came out and had the guy in the chair scenario. So, all right, we're at 25 minutes. Any questions? Yes, sir? In the news media? Are you suggesting what? I'm just thinking about Xbox. It's not terribly recent, but it was horrifically compromising to their platform. Other organizational aspects of companies that have been compromised. Go ahead. You mean the YouTube attack? Okay. Wow. Nice. That's awesome. I wish I knew those guys. There was also another one that I mean, I'm hesitant to mention, but it is still important. YouTube was directly attacked, and that was by physical compromise of their environment, where we had a loss of life in that scenario, and it's quite unfortunate. It's another reason we need to take physical security important. It's not just the data we protect, it's the lives. Yes. I'm sorry, one more time? Cat cars, military, we don't attack military facilities. Typically, military facilities have their own red team and guns. So, but in cat cards, I have not seen cat cards used in business. That being said, the business that does use them will probably not get breached by me. Yes, sir. The full listing is actually up there on the GitHub. I strongly recommend checking it out. Mike Kelly and Chris has done significant levels of effort and research in getting this online. He wants to make it into the Metasploit of physical pen test. So go there. It's constantly being updated. I cannot recommend this software suite more. It's also really fun. So, like, we had an Optiv office in Chicago that was just empty all the time, and so we got permission to mess with it. And the concierge suite I was able to demonstrate that you can unlock the door persistently or accept whatever badges I wanted. Yes, sir. Cars typically work RF, which is different than RFID. In that, so the frequency spectrum, we're typically looking at a low frequency of, I think it's 83 hertz, guys, you two? Matt, Steven? Okay. I can't remember the high frequency, which high frequency. So two different things there. But yeah, the low frequency for car remotes, remote start, remote open, it's available. It's there. You can replay it. The Proxmark's not capable of it. There are definitely tools out there like RF1, I think is the name of it. RF tool. If you go to the Car Hacking Village, they actually have an example of that up and running over in our vendor area. Yes, sir. Yep. We had a gig like that actually. Using Proxmark specific not Proxmark, excuse me, using HID iClass with a fingerprint scan. The consultant that was assigned to that gig spent actually about a month and a half on it, and the biometric data they discovered, was just one more thing that could be replayed. How to replay it though? You're gonna have to splice a wire. So it's there. The controller itself can be attacked directly. If you're going to try and do a badge cloning attack, you're going to have a really difficult time. That's not to say that's a 100% effective way of controlling your environment, so don't take me on that one. Okay, I think I'm out of time. I am. Thank you very much, guys.